So today we're going to talk about an interesting kind of deck. So this is Red Eyes Burn. Red Eyes Burn is a weird deck because it keeps cropping up. It occasionally wins a tournament here and there. It's usually not a particularly high attendance event, but this deck does keep cropping up. And I think a little bit of that is just going to be, if you throw enough mud at the wall, eventually some of it's going to stick, right? So if you just keep bringing this deck, eventually it's going to put up some sort of results because it does have the ability to kind of kill your opponent out of nowhere. Now, the main reason this has like kind of the burn attached to it is because of this spell card, Inferno Fire Blast. So if you have a Red Eyes Black Dragon face up on your field, inflict 2400 damage to your opponent, your Red Eyes Black Dragon cannot attack this turn. Now, there will be a lot of situations where you're like, well, I could just attack with my Red Eyes and that will do 2400 damage. But there will be times when you can activate more than one Infernal Fire Blast in a turn, or if your opponent has a big kind of wall up and you can't get to the life points, activating Infernal Fire Blast becomes very, very good. If you're somehow able to get 3 of these into your hand, you can activate all 3 in one turn and deal 7,200 burn damage to your opponent. Now, Red Eyes Burn has been in a lot of shells. This shell specifically is the high-tech dragon shell, and the reason we've gone with this is because of Red Boot Boost Dragon. So we can choose up to 7 dragon-type monsters in our graveyard, inflict damage to our opponent equal to the number of chosen monsters times 100, then this card gains attack equal to the number of chosen monsters times 100 till the end of the turn. Then shuffle the monsters into the deck. So this is a pretty good burn tool. If we get, let's say, 7 dragons, we can burn our opponent for 700 and then gain 700 attack. That basically can all add up, combined with the rest of the burn from Inferno Fire Blast, to kill our opponent. But the main reason we're on this is for our fusion monsters, which is we can choose up to 9 monsters in any graveyard, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of chosen monsters times 200, which means if we do hit 9, that means we can do 1800 burn damage and gain 1800 attack, which is huge. 1800 is a ton of damage. Combine that with the 24 from Infernal Fire Blast, that is a lot. But yeah, Red Boot Enhanced Boost Dragon is very, very strong. So basically we just want to play these cards. Obviously the other fusion material is Boost and Wyvern, which can deal 600 burn damage, and that all adds up. The fusion spell we're using is Dragon's Boot Fusion as well, which can send the top 7 cards of both our and our opponent's decks to the graveyard, thus giving us everything we need to activate Red Boot Enhanced Boost Dragon's effect and get that massive burn off. So to play around these cards, we've decided to include Bluetooth Burst Dragon. 2500 attack is decent. That is the one problem with Red Boot Boost Dragons, only has 2400 attack. A lot of the time we ended up having to summon this in attack mode on our first turn, and summoning a 2400 attack monster kind of sucks because you're basically inviting your opponent to summon out their 2500 attacker and just attack over it, and then you're kind of in a terrible position because you're now down 3 cards and you've lost your big boss monster. But Bluetooth, being 2500, is a lot harder to deal with, so we can send the top card of the deck to the graveyard, destroy all face-up monsters with 1500 or less attack on your opponent's field. Then this card gains attack equal to the number of monsters destroyed by this effect times 300 until the end of the turn. So this card is pretty good. Obviously it destroys weenies, but we can make our opponent's weenies using Lightwave Dragon. Again, these 2 cards have been like a mini combo ever since they both came out. Lightwave Dragon is fantastic. Send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Up to 3 face-up monsters on your opponent's field lose 1500 attack during the main phase. So that's pretty good. Unfortunately, it's only during the main phase, you can't attack over them. But we can weaken any monster that's 3000 or less attack to be under 1500, or 1500 or less, I should say. And then Bluetooth can then pop them. So this is a 2-card combo that wipes your opponent's entire board of 3000 or less attack face-up monsters. So it's really, really good. So the combo of Lightwave Dragon, we've decided to include Transami Rhynak Wartu Zen. So if you have another face-up light attribute monster with 1400 less attack on your field, you can destroy 1 face-up monster with 1500 or less attack on your opponent's field. So again, if we have Lightwave Dragon, that meets its requirement. Lightwave Dragon will put them under 15, and then Wartu Zen will destroy them. So again, a nice little mini combo. Next up, Legend Magician. So Legend Magician is especially good in this deck because we want to be getting our Red Eyes into the graveyard as soon as possible. But because Red Eyes is also a Legend normal monster, we could put it back into our hand using Legend Magician's effect if we want to. On top of the fact that Legend Strike can bring back Legend normal monsters as well, which means if we do dump our Red Eyes into the graveyard, we can special summon it back with Legend Strike, which it makes Legend Magician and Legend Strike especially powerful in this deck because we can bring back Red Eyes Black Dragon and destroy our opponent's back row, and then activate Inferno Fire Blast, which is this very devastating combo if it all comes off. Next up, we have DBF Rebuilder. So I don't think this card's effect actually, we maybe use this one time in our entire time playing this deck. But during the main phase, this card was normal special summoned, you can reveal a Bluetooth or a Red Boot in your hand to set a Dragon Burst Fusion or Dragon Boot Fusion from your graveyard to your spell and trap card zone. A lot of the time, we didn't end up getting our fusion spell in the graveyard unless we were winning the game that turn. So this card, again, didn't really do much, but there are situations where it will be really, really helpful depending on what your opponent is playing. So we still included it, but I think this card could realistically probably be cut. Next up, Phoenix Dragon, one of the oldest cards in Rush. Then one card from your hand to the graveyard, add a level 5 or higher dragon type monster from your graveyard to your hand. So again, really, really good to get back our boss monsters. Red Boot is very important to burn our opponent and to go into our fusion monster. Bluetooth can be really good at staving off, and if we have our Lightwave Dragon, is a very, very good way to out our opponent's hard to break board. Getting back Red Eyes Black Dragon, again, can be really, really good if we do have the Inferno Blast ready to go. So Phoenix Dragon is just generally a really good card. The actual main way we use this was summon it, discard the Red Boot to get back the Bluetooth, so we actually ended on a 2500 attacker, because that is usually a lot more useful than ending on a 2400 attacker. Next up, Ship of the 7 Treasures, a really fantastic consistency tool if we're on a 7 axis, which we are. All of our boss monsters are level 7s, including our Red Eyes, which does make this the ideal draw card of choice. For our legend spell, we are playing Monster Reborn, so this is a just generically good spell. But in this deck specifically, we are trying to fusion summon, and we are trying to keep our Red Eyes Black Dragon on the field as much as possible to keep our Inferno Fire Blasts live all the time, which means Monster Reborn is ideal for meeting all of these requirements. Now, Dark Hole might be a good option as well, because we can wipe our opponent's board and then attack them, but in this kind of burn strategy, we're not going to be attacking as much as you might think. So we're basically going to use Monster Reborn to try and facilitate our burn strategy above all else. Next up, we have Magical Stone Excavation. Again, fantastic spell card. Being able to get back our Ship of the 7 Treasures can help fix our hand. Being able to get back Red Boot Fusion can be a game ender depending on the board we got set up. Getting back Legend Strike can be really good because that can get back our Red Eyes Black Dragon and destroy a back row. Getting back Inferno Fire Blast might be the 2400 damage we need to win the game. And getting back Monster Reborn is always going to be fantastic. So yeah, Magical Stone Excavation is a must for this deck. And then finally, Magic Cylinder. Again, this is a burn deck, so Magic Cylinder actually has more of a home in this deck than pretty much any other. Being able to just an extra chunk of damage out of nowhere can be what we need to close games a lot of the time. They're always going to be the card of choice. So the other fusion monster we have in here that we can make is Bluetooth Enhanced Burst Dragon. So made using Bluetooth and Boost Wyvern, we can send one monster from our field to the graveyard to destroy one face-up card on either field. Then if you send a monster whose original level is 7 or higher to the graveyard to meet this requirement, you can special summon one Bluetooth Burst Dragon from your graveyard face-up to your field. So it's pretty good. Basically, we can pop a card, then if we pop a monster who's a very high level card, we can get back our Bluetooth Burst Dragon and then just have a 3000 and a 2500 attacker, which is a pretty decent board. Now, this isn't going to be our primary game plan, but it is a good backup strategy if we cannot get our burn strat online and we cannot find all the pieces to make our Red Boot Enhanced Boost Dragon. So for our side deck, we have Dark Lurker. This card does burn again, but we don't want to include a ton of high level monsters, so we put this in the side deck. But our opponent is playing a lot of back row that are particularly troublesome for us. We can bring this in. We have the Mirage Dragon. Again, sometimes we will need to attack, and sometimes our opponent's trap cards can get in the way, so Mirage Dragon is a great way to deal with that. We have the Aquillas to deal with Executey if that shows up, and occasionally we'll bring this in if we know our opponent's on Vanity's Fiend, because that can lock us quite hard. We're on our anti-maximum cards in Talismanic Seal Array and Torrential Tribute. We've got our going second cards in Ghost Cyclone. We've got Dark Hole in case we really feel that we need it. This deck does sometimes struggle to get over monsters that are higher than 3000 attack because our little Light Wave and Bluetooth Burst combo does not out them. So if our opponent is on a lot of monsters like that, we'll bring in Dark Hole. We have our Prison Islands to deal with Harpies, and we have the Word Working to deal with pretty much everything, but primarily this is going to be an If Certain Wonder Fusion Turbo. So yeah, this is the deck. Basically, this deck feels like it's a bit of a gimmick. The high-tech dragon part of the deck is decent, and it can be enough a lot of the time to win games, but I feel like dragons are falling a little bit behind at the moment. They feel like they need some just better low-level monsters to allow them to compete. As for the burn part of the deck, if you do manage to draw all the right pieces, you can just end games out of nowhere, and it does feel a little bit unfair to your opponent. The problem is how often you're going to draw all of those burn pieces. It's not going to happen all the time. But there will be some times where you just draw a hand, you see just a bunch of burn tools, and you go, oh, I win. And that's quite a nice feeling, I guess. But yeah, this is a deck that, again, keeps coming up. Burn isn't really a thing in Rush. There is one other, like, topping burn list that I've seen recently, and that's to do with Earth Machine, and we'll probably be giving that a go in the near future. But it's pretty cool to just see a deck that's trying to do something different to what other decks are doing, so we thought we'd give it a go. Plus, I mean, who doesn't love Red Eyes Black Dragon? So, let's fire in some replays. I can show you what I've been talking about